In this video, I'm gonna show you how to play the PS1, PSP, and PS2 Armored Core games on PC, and how to install the True Analog mod, which adds dual analog support for these games. This used to be a series of 3 videos here on the channel, but I had to take them down. This time they are being uploaded as a single video, fully revised, that has everything you would need to start playing the games from each system, covering the full emulators, setups, and mod installation. We'll start from PS1, PSP, and PS2 in that order. So without further ado, let's get started. We're gonna start by downloading DuckStation. I'm going to put the link of this website on the description of the video, and this is one of the best PS1 emulators out there. I'm using Windows 10, so I'm gonna click here on the Windows version of this, and it says here that DuckStation requires VC++ runtime to be installed. And if you don't have that on your PC, DuckStation will tell you when you try to install it. So if it does happen to you, first you have to download VC++ by clicking on this link, and then just run the .exe setup, install everything, and you're good to go. And from there, just click here on Download Duck and place the files on the place of your preference on your PC. It will come as a zip file right here, so first we need to extract using WinRAR or 7-zip, that's up to you. It's very straightforward. Just select the program you're using and click on Extract here, and it will generate the files from the emulator. Go ahead and delete the original zip file, we don't need it anymore. And before we start setting up the emulator, I'm gonna recommend you here to create 2 folders inside this emulator folder. One is called BIOS, and the second one is called Games, just so that we keep things organized moving forward. Now we can start the DuckStation installation. So just double click here on DuckStation.exe file. It's going to open the setup wizard. First, it's going to ask you what language you want to use for the emulator, selecting the default theme for it. I'm gonna leave mine as Dark Fusion Gray, and also leave Enable Automatic Updates available. Click on Next. Here, it's going to ask you where you want the emulator to scan for the BIOS files. And I can't show you here on the video how to get them, because this is against YouTube's policy. But it shouldn't be hard to find, if you know what I mean. And as you probably have guessed it already, you're gonna place the BIOS on that same BIOS folder that we just created right here. So in my case, I'm gonna paste my BIOS file here, and we're good to go. So now go back to the DuckStation setup wizard, and we're gonna change the scan directory here. By default, it's going to be this one. So just click here on Browse, and it should open the same folder where the emulator is installed. So you just have to highlight the BIOS folder, then click on Select, and leave everything else as default. Now you're gonna click on Next again, and this time it's going to ask you where you want the emulator to scan for the games, which is the Games folder that we just created. So click here on Add, and then highlight the Games folder, and click on Select Folder. This window will show up, click on Yes, and there you go. You can now click here on Next. Finally, we have the controller set up, and if you don't have your controller connected yet, go ahead and do that now. And this emulator has an automatic mapping function here, which is pretty good. So you just have to click here on the button and select the controller you're using. In my case, I have an Xbox 360 controller, so this is the option that I have to select, and it's pretty much done here. Now click on Next, and this is it. We have finished setting up the emulator. Now click here on Finish, and it should open the emulator as such. And you're gonna place the game here on that Games folder that we created. For this tutorial, I'm gonna be using Armored Core as an example, but the mod is available for the other 2 games as well. I got the reprint edition of Armored Core 1, but the original release of the game works as well. They're basically the same game, it's just different releases from it. So inside the Games folder, you want to extract the game files right here, and they're gonna be left as a folder like this one. And inside, you should have the .bin and .q files right here. They're both required for the game to work properly. Now we're gonna reopen the emulator once again, so double click here on the file on the emulator folder, or if you had your emulator open while doing this, you just have to click here where it says scan for new games, something like that, and the game should appear right here. Now before we download the mod, there is one thing we have to change on the emulator settings in order for it to work properly. So I'm gonna leave the emulator open here so we can check this information. And now I want you to go to the emulator folder once again and double click here on this resources folder. And right here, you should have this file inside as well, the gamedb.json. You're gonna open this file with the default notepad from Windows or whatever notepad software that you have on your computer. And if you can't open here right away, you just have to click on it with the right button and then select here the option Open With. And this window will show up and you just have to select the notepad right here. If it doesn't show up on the top, click here on More Apps and then find the notepad right here and then click on it and select OK. And then this window should open up as such. And right here on this file, you're gonna press Ctrl F on the keyboard to bring up the Find window right here. And right here on this bar, you're gonna type the serial code of the game you're modding. In my case, I'm using Armored Core 1, the reprint edition, and the serial code is this one right here. I'm gonna start here with mine. I'm gonna type /. The caps matter, by the way. They have to be in caps in order for this to be found. And then line 01323. Make sure that the direction is set as down, by the way, and then click on Find Next. And right here, we have found the configurations for Armored Core 1. And right here on the bottom where it says Digital Controller, you're gonna erase the digital from it and replace it with Analog Controller, exactly like this. Now, don't forget to save the modifications here. Click on File and then Save, or you can press Ctrl S on your keyboard. And we're pretty much done here. Now let's download the mod itself. And right here, you want to click on Armored Core PS1 Enhancements, and then it's going to take you to this page. And now you just have to click here on the download button to download the mod. Place it on the same folder where the game is, by the way. Now back on the emulator folder, go to the games folder once again and double click the games folder. And right here, the mod is with me. It will come as a zip file, so you can use WinRAR or 7-zip to extract it. In my case, I have 7-zip, so I'm just gonna double click here and then double click on the folder inside. And here you want to double click on the game to where you're installing the mod. In my case, it is the first Armored Core game, so this one. And here we have a list of the mods available for the different versions of the game. In my case, I got the reprint edition of Armored Core 1, so this is the file that I'm gonna need here. You can just click and hold on the file and then just drag and drop it inside the folder where the game is. There are two ways you can install this mod into the emulator, and the one that I'm gonna be using here is the simple one that does not require to use a patcher tool. Now, I want you to click with the right button on either the bin file or the Q1, like this, and then select the option that says Rename. And right here, you're gonna copy the name of the game right here, and you can do this by just clicking again with the right button, and then click here on Copy. Now, you're gonna go to the mod file here, the PPF file, and you're gonna do the same thing. Click on it with the right button, and then select the option Rename. Now here, you're gonna click with the right button once again, and you're gonna select the option that says Paste right here. So basically, in order for this to work, we just have to rename the mod file with the game itself. Now you can just press here, Enter on the keyboard, and there you go. So in order for the mod to work, it needs to have exactly the same name as the .bin and the .q file. And if you had the emulator open while doing all of this, close it down to make sure that this change has worked. So double click on DuckStation here. And now we're going to start to configure the emulator settings for the game itself. So click on the game with the right button and select the first option here, Properties. This window will show up, and first go to the BIOS tab right here and enable this option here, Fast Boot. This is not really required, but this is just for skipping the PlayStation 1 startup screen. Next, go to Console right here, and on CD-ROM emulation, you want to change the read speed up to 10x and the seek speed up to 10x as well. This is not required for the mod to work, but this will speed up any loadings that the game has, and it works pretty great on Armored Core 1. But if you do and the game doesn't load or anything like that, you just have to come back here and select the default double speed. And for the mod to work, you have to enable this option here, apply image patches. This is how the emulator will recognize that PPF file that we had, the mod file itself. Now click here on display because we're now tweaking the emulator settings for the best quality in game. Here on render, if it's available for you, go ahead and select hardware Vulkan. If it's not available, if your GPU is a little outdated, you can leave it on the global setting automatic too, but preferably set this one to Vulkan. On screen display, you can stretch the image to 16:9 if you want to fill the whole screen, but this game runs natively at 4:3 and there are no widescreen patches available for it. So this one is gonna be up to you, but I would just recommend leaving them on the native 4:3 perspective. You can also disable the show OSD messages right here if you want to get rid of all the messages that the emulator show up. This is optional. Now go to enhancements and you can increase the internal resolution scale right here. This game works fine even on 16x. There are no graphical glitches or anything like that. So this one is going to be up to you to as much as your computer can handle, that is. In my case, I'm just going to leave mine at 5x 1080p. You want to enable the true color rendering as well. And now right here on the bottom, enable the geometry correction, the perspective correct textures, perspective correct colors, and culling correction. And that's pretty much it for the emulator settings. So you can now start the game. So you just have to double click here on the game itself. It should start and with the mod working as it should be. Now let's move over to the PSP Armored Core games. We're gonna start by getting PPSS-PP. This is the best PSP emulator out there. So head over to their website right here. I'm going to put the link on the description of the video. So right here, just click on download. I'm on Windows 10, so I'm gonna get this version right here, the portable version. I prefer getting instead of the installer version. So just go ahead, choose whatever version you feel like it, and place it on the folder of your preference. With the file downloaded, we're gonna extract the contents from the zip file. I'm using 7-zip, but you can use WinRAR as well if you feel like it. I'm just going to extract here to a folder. Here on the emulator folder, you just got to double click here on Windows64.exe. First thing we're going to do on the emulator is select the folder where you want the emulator to scan the games. So just click here on browse and select the folder where you want it to do that. It can't even be the same folder as the emulator, which is what I'm going to do here, just like I did it here. Now let's configure the emulator settings for the game. So just click here on settings. This window will show up. Right here on the graphics tab on back end, if it's available for you, go ahead and select Vulkan right here. If it's not available, if your GPU is a little outdated, you can leave it as OpenGL or you can test with Direct3D 9 or 11. In my case, I'm going to choose Vulkan. I'm going to ask to restart the emulator. Go ahead and click here on restart. It's only going to take a few seconds to restart. Now here, still on the graphics tab, here on rendering resolution, you can increase this one depending on how powerful your computer is. Even go as high as 8x 4K, for example. But in my case, I'm going to leave mine at 4x 1080p. On anti-aliasing, go ahead and change this one to 8x. Now scroll down here a little bit, and on texture scaling, you can change the upscale type right here. I usually like to play my games at hybrid bicubic, but you can choose XBRZ for example as well. You're gonna have to test depending on the game. But in this case, I'm going to set mine to hybrid bicubic. Right on the bottom where it says upscale level, you can change this one to 5x. Here on texture filtering, we're gonna change the anisotropic filtering all the way to 16x. This has minimal impact on performance and will make the game look much better. And on texture filtering, it's going to be set as auto. And go ahead and change this to auto max quality. That's pretty much it for the graphics configurations. Now click here on controls, and this emulator has a auto mapping function for your controls. So if you don't have your controller plugged in, go ahead and do that right now and click here on control mapping. Just click here on this auto configure option. When you do that, it's going to list all the devices you have plugged in that works as a controller. In my case, I have a Xbox 360 controller. So I'm just gonna click here on it. And just like that, the emulator will configure the inputs for me. Also, you wanna scroll down here on this page and find the right analog inputs right here, because we're gonna need this for the mod, and you want to add them exactly like I do here. The up, press the analog up, then down, left, and right. You have to leave it exactly like I'm showing here for the mod. And also right here on the bottom, the last option available where it says note, you want to set this one to either L2 or the R2. This option is going to be used in game for purging your weapons and parts as well. The mod would take care of that, so we just have to select one input here in order for this to work. And that's it for the controls. We don't have to change anything on audio, networking, tool, system. Yeah, we're pretty much done here, so now you can click on back, and now the emulator setup is completed. Now you're gonna have to close the emulator, and right here on the emulator folder, I'm gonna recommend you to create a new folder here called Armored Core, or it can be anything else you prefer right here in this case, but go ahead and create a new folder right here, and this is where I'm going to be placing the games. I'm gonna be using Armored Core 3 as an example right here, but this will work for the other games as well. Now, this is where this tutorial is going to get complicated for installing the analog mod. And I'm gonna need you to pay attention and do exactly what I show here in the video to make sure that everything works out in the end. Now, right here on the .iso of the game, you need to click on it with the right button. And in this case, I'm using 7-zip, but I believe this will work just as fine with WinRAR as well. As long as you have this option right here, that when you put your mouse on top of it, these options will show up. I believe it works just like that on WinRAR as well. And you're gonna select the option that says extract to, and then it's gonna show up the name of the game. And you wanna click on it. And when you do that, it's going to generate here a new folder, and inside this folder, we're gonna have the game files right here. Now, you wanna double click on the PSP game folder, like this, and then double click again on the sysdir folder as well. Now, right here, you're gonna have these files, but the one file that we're gonna need here is this eboot.bin. This is the file that we're gonna be messing with to install the analog mod. And to do that, first we need to decrypt this file right here. And we can do that using this little program right here called PSP Decrypt. And you're just gonna have to download whatever is the latest version available here. In my case, I'm using Windows, so I'm just gonna click this option right here. This is gonna depend on the operational system you're using here. So just download the software and place it on that same folder where the eboot file is. There you go. It's going to look like this. So first we need to extract this file. So just use 7-zip or WinRAR. This is the one file that we need here, the PSP decrypt.exe. And to decrypt this one is actually very simple. Right here, click on the original eboot.bin file, and then you want to click and hold on the file so you can move around like this, and then you're going to place it on top of the PSP decrypt.exe, and then just leave it like this, and there you go. The decrypted file has showed up, and this is what we're going to be working here from now forward. And now we're going to download two files, the mod itself and the patcher tool. Let's start by downloading the mod itself. This is where these mods were distributed, and right here on the top, you want to click here on Armored Core PSP Enhancements. It's going to take us to this page right here, and now you just have to click here on this little download icon to get it started. And once again, place this file on that same folder as before. And for patching the ISO of the game, we're going to be using this software right here, the PPF-O-Matic. So just click here on download file now. You're going to have to solve a CAPTCHA in order to download it and place it on the same folder as well. There you go, and this is what the folder is going to look like now. And we're going to start by extracting the mod itself. So double click here on Armored Core PSP Enhancements. This window will show up. Double click on the folder, and you're going to extract the mod depending on the game you are testing, right? In my case, it's Armored Core 3. So I'm just gonna click, drag and drop this file into the same folder like this. And now we're going to extract the patcher tool, this one right here. So click on it with the right button, 7-zip or WinRAR, depending on what you're using. And this new folder will show up. So double click on it. And here, double click on this PPF-O-Matic 3.exe. This is the patcher tool for this mod to work. First, we have to select where the ISO is. In that case, where is that decrypted.bin file? So you want to start by clicking here, and then you have to select where the file is. I already browsed through the files here to systemd, and you want to click here on files type. By default, it's going to say CD images, and you want to change this one to all files so that it shows up the decrypted file as well. So you're going to select this one and then click on open. And now on patch, click on the icon again, but this time we have to select the mod itself, the ACE3 Portable USA eBoot, this file right here, basically. Highlight it, click on open. If you did everything right, it's going to show up all the information about the patch and the game. So now you just have to click on apply. This one should, yeah, it's pretty much instantly. Now the file is patched, click on OK, and you can close this down now. Finally, we have the game data patched with the analog mod, and we now have to put that back into the ISO of the game. And we can do that using this software right here, UMDGen. Once again, the link of this will be on the description of the video, so just click here on download file now and place it on that same folder as before. Now, once again, I'm gonna need you to extract the UMG software right here. Just like before, click on extract here, and these two files will be generated. This is the only one we're gonna need, the umdgen.exe. Now, before we start with the software, I'm gonna need you to delete the original eBoot bin file right here. We're not gonna be using that anymore, so just go ahead and delete it. And we have to rename the decrypted file here like its original name. So here on the eboot.bin.dac, you wanna click on it with the right button and then select the option here where it says rename. And you're gonna erase the .dec from its name like this. Leave it like this, press enter. It's going to ask you if you really want to change the file name extension. Click on yes, and there you go. Now you can open umdgen.exe. It should open up as such. And right here, we have to start by opening the .iso of the game. So click here on open. It should open the emulator directory first. So now select where the game is. In my case, it's right here inside the Armored Core folder. Click on it and then select open, and it should open up the game as such inside the software. And first we have to navigate through here to where this file is, but on the original ISO of the game. But basically all you have to do is double click here on PSP game, double click on sysdir, and right here is going to show up the original bin file of this game. This one, we have to delete it. So click on it with the right button and select delete. So all you have to do here now is click on the eboot.bin file, then click and hold and drag this file into the program right here. Now you have to click here on save and then select the uncompressed.iso option like this. This window will show up because after it's done processing this, it's going to generate a new ISO of the game with the mod. So in my case, I'm going to be saving this new ISO on the default PSP folder right here, because that's where I set the emulator to scan the games, right? Now you just have to type the file name that you're gonna be using. In my case, I'm gonna type Armored Core 3 patched so that I know what it is. Then click on save. This one should be pretty quick, and yeah, there you go. Now, if I go back into the emulator folder, you can see that I have the game here in a .iso format and with the patch. So now you can open the emulator once again, and the game will show up right here already configured with this mod. So you just have to click on it once and it will start, and then finally you can start playing the game. And finally, we're gonna do the setup for the PlayStation 2 games. We'll begin by downloading the best PS2 emulator, PCSX2. The link will be down below on the fixed comment of this video. And here on the main page, you want to click here on latest nightly and then download the emulator for the operational system you're using. In my case, I have Windows, so this is where I'm gonna click here. The emulator will come as a zipped file, so you're gonna need either WinRAR or 7-zip to extract it. I would personally recommend 7-zip over WinRAR actually, and I created a folder called PS2 on the desktop of my computer, and now here on the file, I'm just gonna double click on it, It's gonna open with 7-zip, and now I'm just gonna extract all the contents here to the same folder where the original file was. You can go ahead and delete the original file. We're not gonna need this anymore. And here, before we start the actual installation, click here on View and make sure that File Name Extensions is enabled right here. This is required for what we are about to do right now. So before we start the actual installation of the emulator, you're gonna right click here on the folder, and then you're gonna select New, and then click on Text Document. This file will be generated, and you're gonna rename this file here to Portable, and on the .txt, you're gonna erase the txt and replace it with ini. Exactly like this. It has to be written exactly like this. And when you click away, it's going to ask if you really want to change this one, and then click on yes. And if you see this little gear here next to the program, it means you did it right. Now you're gonna click here on this PCSX2 executable, so just double click on it. And if you did it right, all these folders will show up right here, just like it was before, but this is something that they changed it on the latest version of this emulator. There's a few options here if you want to change the language and the theme of the emulator. I'm just gonna leave everything on default here, so go ahead and click on next. Here we're gonna have to select the folder to where the BIOS files are gonna be. I can't show here on the video where to go or even mention where you could find it because that's against YouTube's policy. But it shouldn't be too hard to find, if you know what I mean. And when you have them with you, you're gonna place them on the BIOS folder here, on the emulator folder, just like this. Now go back to the installation program here, and then click on Refresh List, and like that, the BIOS should appear here. I got the Japanese version, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. This is not gonna affect the installation or anything like that. So now click here on Next, and on this tab, we're gonna have to select the folder to where you want the emulator to scan for the games. And in my case, I like creating a folder here on the emulator folder. Click on New and then Folder. I just create a new one here called Games, just to keep everything on the same place, right? Now go here back on the emulator and then click here on Add, and it should open the emulator folder by default. So now you just have to select that Games folder that we just created and click on Select. It's going to ask if you want the emulator to scan this every time. Click on Yes, and there you go. The folder directory should appear right here. Now click on Next, and on this screen we can configure our controller, and this emulator has a automatic mapping function. So if you already have your controller plugged in, you're gonna click here on automatic mapping, and it's going to list all the devices you are using. In my case, I have a Xbox controller, so I'm gonna click here on SDL0 X input controller, but you can use your keyboard as well if that's the case. You can configure this later inside the emulator, by the way. If you have a second controller, you just have to do the exact same thing here on controller port 2. Now click here on Next, and with that we have finished the installation of the emulator, and it should appear right here. This will be a good time to subscribe to the channel and also leave a like on this video. And now with that, we've finished installing the emulator, and I already have all 4 games here with me. These are the games that have the true analog mod support. So we are missing Armored Core Nexus and Last Raven. When you get them, go ahead and place them on that games folder we created before right here. Now before we configure each game on the emulator, we're gonna download the file that has the true analog mod for each game. Click right here on Armored Core PS2 Enhancements. It's going to take you to this page right here. And on this code tab here, you want to click here on this download button. And you can place them anywhere on your computer. In my case, I'm going to put them on the same folder of the emulator. Now here on the emulator folder, I already have the mod files here. You can use WinRAR to extract them if you feel like it. But in my case, I'm using a program called 7-zip. So I'm just gonna double click them like this, then this folder, double click here, then double click on True Analogs, and right here we have the mods for each game. And we're gonna have to extract the file for each one of them, starting with Armored Core 2. Gonna double click this one, and here we have the mod on the PNEC format, which is what we're going to use, and the PPF format. This PPF format is using for patching the ISO of the game, but we're not going to use this one. We're going to use PNAC. This is the patch that we're going to need here, this LUS 214. So now you just have to go back here on the emulator folder. There is this one folder called cheats. And if you're installing the emulator for the first time, this is going to be empty, right? So you just have to drag and drop this SLUS file here into this folder like this. And we have to repeat the same thing for all 4 games in this case. So now here, I'm gonna move on this one, same file, drag and drop. Armored Core 3, same file. The last one as well here. And there you go. That's pretty much it. That's all we have to do here. So now, open the emulator like this. And I'm going to be demonstrating here the configuration for Armored Core 2, but this setting is used for the remaining games as well. The exact same setting. So you just have to repeat what I do here for the games you want to play. So now here with Armored Core 2, click on it with the right button and click here on Properties. This window will show up and we're going to start by heading to this Patches tab right here and go ahead and enable the widescreen and the no interlacing cheats. Now click here on the cheats tab and the true analog mod should appear right here. So you want to click on enable cheats and then click to enable the true analogs. Now click here on graphics. On render, if it's available for you, go ahead and select Vulkan. If it's not available for you, if your GPU is a little outdated, you can enable Direct3D 11 or OpenGL, or if you don't know, you can just leave them on automatic. But if it's available, go ahead and select Vulkan. Now here on display, change the aspect ratio to widescreen 16:9. And here on the bottom, you just have to enable the anti-blur option. Now click here on rendering. On internal resolution, you can crank up the resolution to as much as your computer can handle. In my case, I'm gonna set mine to 4K, but this setting you have to test it out to see how much your computer can handle, right? Here on anisotropic filtering, change this one to 16x. This will make the game look much better and has minimal impact on performance. Now this part is optional, but I like going to this post-processing option right here and enable the FXAA sharpening. I like to play my games at 60%, but you can leave them on the default as well. That is up to you. And that's pretty much it. Leave everything else on the default settings. Now click here on close and we're ready to go right now. Just select the game that you want to play, double click on it, and you can start playing. I have many videos like this on the channel covering how to install and play games on PC with the best settings. So if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like on this video, and check out my other stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.